Hello, everybody. Tracy, Mrs. JDog Flanagan with you here today. I'm the co-founder and senior vice president of JDog Brands. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tactical Treasures, powered by Vet TV and JDog. Our podcast gives veterans, male spouses, active military members, and military family members a voice in the veteran space to speak about their service, how they're affecting their communities post-service, and they share with me a tactical treasure that has shaped their journey in their military career, business, or life. Today, I have the amazing pleasure of speaking with Mark Kershaw. Mark is an Army veteran, having served for 7 years as an airborne infantry non-commissioned officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. Post-service, Mark has pursued many professional endeavors, the latest of which involves being film producer for the upcoming docudrama action film, Tribal, an intense, action-packed, and emotional film that tells the incredible stories of 3 U.S. combat veterans and aims to put an end to veteran suicide. Hi, Mark. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Same, Tracy. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, Mark, can you tell us about your military career? What inspired you and led you to join the Army?
That's a good question. I would say what attracted me to the Army was 2 things. I wasn't a great student. You couldn't keep me in a classroom, even if you tied me down to a chair. So it took me 5 years to get out of high school. They liked me so much, they invited me back for another year. And at that time, it was about 2005. The war was really kicking off. I was failing out of school, didn't care. You could barely get me to come into class. It, just didn't interest me. I didn't really have any vision or any want in school at all. And then I remember looking at I think the news was flashing how many people we were losing in Iraq. And it was like an ungodly amount. I think we were already over 2,000 in 2005. And, the Fallujah push was going on, all these things. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here not doing anything. There's people dying for our country over there. And 2 days later, I went into the recruiter office, said, I want airborne infantry ranger. And they're like, well, we got all these other jobs, I was like, no, airborne infantry ranger. That's what I want to do. And then took the test, was good enough. I ended up getting airborne and infantry, didn't get the ranger contracts. They said they didn't have any at that time, but I did something called the DEP program. So the DEP program is you go through all the testing, the MEPS, you do MEPS, and then you pass the ASVAB, and then you do you swear in, but you're not 100% in until you pass high school. So this was December. I did that of 2005. I was supposed to graduate if I passed everything June 2006. By the time I was failing everything. So once we did that, it gave me a sense of purpose, and I had to ace all my final and midterms exams, which I did at a 96 to 98% rate. And then
Wow.
I went back in June, August, re-swore in. I was shipped off to basic training. That's really what happened.
Wow. So it was just a matter of getting through your midterms, just having that push, that purpose, right? Yeah.
Was there caring about something?
Yeah,
really,
definitely. So was there something about your Army career that kind of inspired you or had an impact on you?
Yeah, a lot. I would think, the Army is where I first became a leader. I was promoted both times in combat, right? My first tour was Iraq in 2007, 2008, 2009, that time period. Mm-hmm. And that's when I first became a sergeant. Because even at the time, all I wanted to do was go to war. All I cared about was I just want to fight for my country, get that experience and say I did it and I did something. I just didn't sit on the couch.
Right.
But then once you have somebody that believes in you and somebody that says you're more than that, like my leader, Sergeant Brandon was, Staff Sergeant Brandon, he kind of forced me to for all the military people, go to the board. And for anyone that doesn't know what the board is, as an NCO, it's your rite of passage and you're being tested if you know your knowledge and if you have your confidence and everything like that to be an NCO. So it's in front of all the senior enlisted people, and they're really trying to rattle you and quiz you off off the rip right there. So you're just sitting in the middle of this room and just getting pinged and pinged and pinged, and they're trying to rattle you. And I smoked the board. I did really well. And then I became a leader. And then that's when I really started taking off. That's when I really started being like, it's not about me, it's about others. right? I joined for other people, but also joined for a sense of purpose and to believe in something. But then once I became a leader, nothing was about me. And I
Right.
think that really shaped who I am and what I'm capable of doing. Is where I shine is taking care of others, right? And I think that's probably why after 10 years of being out, I got drawn back to tribal to try to help others again.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. So now post service, one of your ventures is that you are a film producer. Could you talk to me about the what you're working on right now, Tribal? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So tribal is actually something I completely funded myself. So that's not my day job. Actually, I'm a technology sales executive. I'm traveling. I'm in Pearl Harbor right now because I cover the Navy.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but it was something that kept me up. So since I've been out in 2013, I've been losing one soldier per year to suicide, like guys that were in my platoon. So that's like a
Oh,
group of like
wow.
30. And I was in
Oh,
what, 4 or 5 platoons. So, 200 people or whatever. And I've been losing one a year. And it was something. I actually have some other businesses I do, like a trash collection company and some other ones. And I met these guys, Lewis and Brandon Borrego, the Borrego brothers. They at the time were doing website designs, and they did like a commercial for me because I'm all big on, I'm in technology. I'm big on like social media presence and all that stuff. So they did a video, and I was very impressed with it. And I created a relationship with these guys because we worked very closely and we became friends. And I was like, man, the suicide thing is really bothering me. I can't be everywhere. I've got kids, I got a job. I can't be everywhere, and it really bothers me. So I need a force multiplier. And a force multiplier in the military, for anyone who doesn't know, is something that can get your mission, your voice, or get your intent out there without you being there,
sure.
right? And I gave them the idea about this documentary. I think this is it. This is something we could do. And I gave them the idea about it, where I wanted to take 3 combat veterans that don't know each other, that never served with each other. They're in 3 different conflicts, Iraq, Afghanistan. One's a Marine, one's a paratrooper, one's a 10th Mountain guy. And I want to take 3 of them. I want to tell their story, kind of captivate the audience with these intense combat, never before heard combat stories. So you're entrenched in it. And then I want to hide the meaning and almost hit them at the same time of what the true meaning is, which is everyone's dealing with this that is coming out, and it's okay not to be okay. More people deal with it than you think. I've
Right.
talked to a lot of
Mhm.
people, and it's a big problem. And the reason why I wanted to pick 3 different people from 3 different conflicts, and they don't know each other, the only common denominator is me throughout my life, was I don't want people to identify their issues or their struggles with one unit. Because that was something I did. I was like, oh, well, they did that because they were just in the Corongo Valley, and that was one unit, and they're all close together. But I wanted to get as wide of a cast, as wide of a net as possible, and get 3 different perspectives, 3 different experiences. So because each experience might be different, it might touch someone in a different way.
Right.
Over.
Yeah. Great idea. Great idea to
Yeah.
do that. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. I would like to tell you about Irreverent Warriors. The mission of Irreverent Warriors is to bring veterans together using humor and camaraderie to improve mental health and prevent veteran suicide. The Silkies Hike is the organization's largest event that takes place throughout the nation. The purpose of the Silkies Hikes is to bring veterans together to improve mental health and to honor the military's old tradition of wearing silkies. These hikes take place in 70 to 80 cities across the country every year. They've even done a few overseas. You can find out more about IW if you go to their website, irreverentwarriors.com, and I'll spell that for you, IRREVERENTWARRIORS.com. Once there, you can click on the events tab and see where there is a hike close to you. You can also sign up for the newsletter, which will keep you in the know about all things IW. You can go to Facebook and search IW in your city and join the Facebook page to engage with veterans involved in the hike and find out when there's one close to you or in your city. If you are a veteran, active military, or reserve, you are allowed to hike. If you are a civilian, mil spouse, veteran spouse, they need volunteers to drive safety vehicles, help with registration, snacks, water, and everything else they may need. So check them out, irreverentwarriors.com. Now back to the podcast. So, what does it mean for you to be able to, tell these stories within the film? I'm sure they're very, very impactful.
Yeah, I mean, it was eye opening because I thought I knew these guys, right?
Yeah.
I thought I knew them very well, which I think I do, but sometimes they've never opened up, and I think it was therapeutic for them, for myself being a part of this, and now it's given all four of us a sense of mission, that can continue after service. 'Cause that's a hard reality when you get out. It may not hit you day one, day three or day 500 or 10,000 or whatever. It's going to hit you one day that, that mission's over for you. It's different when you get out. And I think this has given us a sense of purpose. And I'm hoping that this allows everyone out there to just know it's okay not to be okay. That everyone goes through it and there's a way to beat it. And, it was definitely eye opening. Some of the things that we did there, and especially being a part of the filming, because I never did a film before. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. I was like, let's do it. Um, Being a part of the filming and listening to their stories, like especially because the first way we did was we filmed their interviews, because based upon the interviews is what we were going to film, right? So we
Right.
had to hear what our content was going to be first,
Hmm.
and then we would hire actors and recreate the stuff, because at certain times we didn't have combat footage. A lot of these guys deployed during the invasion and things like that. We don't have that footage. People didn't have GoPros back then. So we had to recreate it with professional actors and rent a Humvee and do all this stuff. So hearing their interviews, even pushed me further, because I was like, man, this has to get out there, because they've opened up their life, their heart to me for the first time ever. Now I owe it to them to do this film justice. So I'm very critical of the film, and I'm very, I would say, focused to get this out there in the most respectful manner that does justice to these heroes' stories.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And the fact that, these three veterans were able to open up and tell their story and talk about it. I agree with you that that's probably very therapeutic, because I think a lot come back and they don't want to talk about anything,
Yeah.
and they want to sort of compartmentalize what they've dealt with. And I've heard other veterans say that, they just kind of take everything and they stick it in a closet and they shut the door and they walk away and they try to go on with their lives. And um, everything seems wonderful on the outside, but eventually you have to open that closet door. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, what they find is it's still there. It hasn't gone away. The
Yeah.
demons or whatever they're dealing with is still there. And so the fact that, you know, getting people to talk about it and to open up to whether it's other veterans or, seeking the help that they need and not being, embarrassed or prideful to seek that help, because that's what is really important, to get
Yeah.
them talking and working through it so they can heal and put it somewhere,
Yeah.
and be able to move on.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like we take it a layer deeper, right? Because I think a lot of people, and this is just my experience. I don't have a degree in this stuff, but this is just me talking to thousands of veterans and trying to help whoever I can help.
Sure.
A lot of people always think it's always PTSD.
Mm. Right.
It's not. And the meaning of tribal, and then what they'll see in the film, like, yes, I think that's a big part of it for some, but for others, I think a lot of people miss that sense of community, that
Yeah.
sense of purpose and identity, right?
Hmm.
I'm no longer Sergeant Kershaw. I no longer have my brothers or sisters, depending on what unit you're in, that share the same exact experience. Um, and now I'm no longer fighting a war. I'm creating, reports or something like that. And I was just over in Afghanistan 5 years ago, defending the people to the left and right of me. And now I'm out here, where people are arguing about left or right, what's all these other things that to us don't really matter, right? And it's a different reality. That's where tribal comes from. It's based upon a community sense of practice, where I'm pulling security for you, not for me. if I'm a cook, I'm not cooking for myself. I'm the last one that eat. I'm cooking for everyone else. It's a very it strips out all the social media and the noise, and then it just puts you in that tribal base of practice. Like, I'm doing this for the greater good of everyone to the left and right of me, and that's what it's about. And then you're there for a year, living it 24 hours a day. Sometimes you have 3 to 4 to 5 deployments, and you almost get a false sense of reality. And
Yeah.
that's what we've noticed. A lot of people struggle with that, and then you compound that with being at war and always being in a heightened sense of awareness, and that no
Yeah.
longer being there. I mean, it just a lot of people deal with that. So we try to broaden the conversation too.
Right.
That's not just you know PTSD, even though
Right.
that's a big factor. I think it's bigger than that.
Yeah. And that's really great. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark, because you're right. I think a lot of the struggle with transitioning and for veterans to get back, to a sense of civilian life, I think is a huge struggle that is not talked about, and it's again different for everybody. And it's just that sense of purpose, that mission. What the heck am I here for now? And
Absolutely.
what do I do? How do I make the incredible impact that I made, while
Yeah.
I was serving my country? How do I get that in the civilian world? And
Absolutely.
it's a struggle. It's a struggle. And it's like redefining yourself, finding that new identity, finding that
Yeah.
new tribe. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, well, good for you for bringing that to light, because I think that's probably not as talked about as the PTSD being talked about.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Um, so I'm excited for this to come out, and when can we get a sneak peek or see it?
That's a
Or
good question. That's a good question. So we're in the final phases of post production. It's pretty organized. We've got it. If anyone's familiar with project portfolio management stuff, we're tracking it all with best of breed technologies. But we're gonna finish. We are targeted to be finished June, like June 13th, June 15th. It was finished post production, and
okay,
we should have a completed film by then. And then we are going to try to enter it in certain film festivals for premiere. But along the way, we've been talking to certain areas of doing private premieres. So I'll be putting up on the websites or on our social media pages some sign in. It'll be free to everybody. Nobody has to pay. And we're going to do private screenings, because you can do private screenings and still enter them in film festivals. And the whole reason we're doing film festivals is the more I learn about the business and things like that, because I'm not taking a dime from this, but I need to get it seen. So I need
right,
it on a major platform that's not just going to get shelved somewhere. So what the
right,
film festivals do is they gives the film credibility if it's good, because this isn't we're just doing a YouTube thing and launching it. This was a major, I
right,
invested all my stock money I made from a company that went public when I was just a part of the company, right? I took all my savings and shipped it out the next day when I thought I lost somebody else. So
right,
I have a lot invested in this, and it shows in the quality of it. And we just need that credibility. We need someone to believe in it to pick it up,
sure,
on a
sure,
major platform. And that way it's more accessible, because the film's like, it can be great, but it's not a force multiplier if people don't see it.
sure,
So
definitely.
that's kind of the thing we're going to do. It should be finished in June. Throughout the summer, we're going to start planning. I think the first one we're targeting right now is the first week of August in DC, somewhere near in the Navy Yard, probably somewhere in that area, like the Wharf area. If people are familiar with DC, probably gonna do the first one there. We've been talking about National Infantry Museum, possibly if they deem it's good enough.
Mhm.
Um, the National Infantry Museum kind of showing it maybe to outgoing people in basic training. Like, one of the things, because when you're in basic training, you get some days where they'll show a movie or something like that. So we've talked to them about that, and then the film festivals as well. So it's still a moving target, but we're going to get it seen, and hopefully by next year it'll be distributed on a major platform.
Wow, well, I hope so. Uh, I'm excited. Well, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open. So let's dive into your treasure. I would love to hear what you're going to share with us today.
Yeah, so this is something that's kind of, I've lost the original one, but I keep going by. But ever since I was in the military, I always have a canopy, or we called it a D ring, right? From being a
Right.
paratrooper and,
Uh-huh.
going through mountain phases or whatever. I'm one of the few people that always have one of these, because you can never, ever, whether, somebody like one of our engagements, right? Someone fell down a hole, a well, that's going to be talked about in the movie. Sergeant Hernandez, he's a hero. And we actually used this in getting him up and like kind of like jerry rigging something together to actually get them out of the hole after we got ambushed. So it's kind of one of
Wow.
those things that I've always, no matter what, on my keys, I keep it on my keys, right? I always
Uh-huh.
have a D ring with me. It's like I'd rather have and not need than need and not have. I haven't needed to use it since I got out. I'm not getting firefights or anything like that here, but
Right.
I can't have a set of keys without a D ring. And then that's kind of like, I would just say, my memorabilia, tactical treasures. Every time I look at it, I remember those days. So
Oh, wow. That's really special. That's cool. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We are speaking with Mark Kershaw, who is an Army veteran, having served for 7 years as an airborne infantry non-commissioned officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. He currently has an amazing post-service endeavor where he is producing a film, a docudrama / action film called Tribal. Tribal tells the amazing stories of 3 U.S. combat veterans and opens the conversation of some of the challenges veterans face when returning to civilian life. Directed, filmed, and edited by Louis Borrego and Brandon Borrego, known as the Borrego brothers, and produced by Mark Kershaw, Tribal is an intense, action-packed film that has its own mission. That mission is to help stop veteran suicide. You can check out a little small trailer on YouTube. It's called The Tribal War Documentary. Now back to the podcast. What advice would you have for your fellow veterans who are struggling transition or just struggling in general? How do you have any advice for that help them find their way post service?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And the biggest thing is, it's okay not to be okay. And it's not one size fits all, but talk to your community, talk to the veterans, the people that have gone through it. Somebody. Go into these forums and just, there's certain social media pages that have 70,000 followers, where if you just send up that red star cluster saying, hey, I need someone to talk to, I'm not doing good, brothers and sisters, you will have, I've seen it, you have 1,000 comments. Call me.
Yeah.
Here's my number.
Yeah.
Call me. There's people there to help. And I think there's a misconception that nobody understands it, because all of us have gone through it. You get this feeling of like, nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody cares. I don't want to trouble somebody. I don't
Right.
want to trouble you with my problems, because, you got a wife, you got a kids, or you got a husband or wife, or whatever it is. Right. Um, I don't want to be a burden. You're not. What's a burden? Getting that call that you ain't
Yeah.
here no more.
Right.
That's a burden.
Yeah.
That burden's everybody. And
Yeah.
we'd much rather you hear and talk to you and take time out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and talk to you throughout the night than never talk to you again. So that's what needs to be. You're not a burden. You're not a problem. You're not an inconvenience. Like the mission doesn't stop with us, right? Like I'm even though I don't wear the rank, and that's not my identity anymore, I'm still their sergeant in a way, right? I still
Yeah.
look after the guys. I still talk to them. And I think it doesn't matter what rank or anything, we're all here together. We got to fight this together. And it's something that, it's not going to be a magic pill where you're going to be 100% the next day, but you can beat it, because there's people that are beating it, and you can beat it every day. And you do that by talking to people.
Right.
Don't just, and the biggest thing, and I think I say this in, or somebody says this in the documentary, is make contact. Like when you're really feeling bad, don't just call and be like, oh crap, Mark didn't answer, right? Call Joe, call Smith, call whoever. Before you do anything, you got to make contact with somebody. Don't just call and be like, oh, nobody answered, nobody cares. Could have been sleeping. So that's the biggest thing, is you're not a burden. Talk to people. And when you're at that point, before you do anything, make contact with somebody. Don't just call and say that's it, right?
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
That's great advice. That's great advice. I love it. Yeah. Very well said. So before you go,
Mhm.
it's been amazing to have you on this podcast. By the way, I'm very excited for the film. I'm excited to see it. Um, is there a way that people can kind of stay abreast as to how it's going and when it's going to hit somewhere? Is there a website or a website coming soon, or what's the best way to track that?
We have a Facebook page, the Tribal War Film. We also have on YouTube. We're pushing out the preview, which is kind of like a teaser trailer, but within the month, we're going to have a really well done official trailer, and we'll be updating social media platforms and things like that. Or you can just, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think that's how I got in touch with JDog.
Yeah.
Very active on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? That's one thing I always take time out of my day. I'll talk about this film. Reach out
Okay.
to me personally. A lot of people do that. Like, I'm very active on the comments too. So, excuse me, if you go into the YouTube and you comment, I will comment back because I'm very big. If you're gonna take the time out of the day and ask a question on something like that, any platform we have, you're gonna get a response from me. And so if you have a question, comment there, reach out to me. Anything you want to know about the film or when we're gonna come out, I'll give you the honest answer. We're not hiding anything. So there'll be all the updates out there.
All right. Awesome. That's great. I'm gonna keep my eyes open.
Thank you.
So, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. This has been really great. I really appreciate everything you had to say, and I'm very excited for the film. And I hope it gets out to the masses, truly, because it sounds like it's something that everybody needs to see.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. It was an honor, and thank you so much for allowing me to come on here and share our film, our project, and just the story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, we'll be looking for the film soon. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Hello, viewers and listeners. Thank you so much for tuning into this very special episode of Tactical Treasures Podcast. We have just had a wonderful conversation with Mark Kershaw, who is an Army veteran, having served for 7 years as an airborne infantry non-commissioned officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. Post-service, Mark's doing amazing things, one including being the producer of a film called Tribal. Tribal tells the amazing stories of 3 U.S. combat veterans and opens the conversation of some of the challenges veterans face when returning to civilian life. Directed, filmed, and edited by Louis Borrego and Brandon Borrego, aka the Borrego brothers, and produced by Mark Kershaw. Tribal is an intense, action-packed film that has its own mission. That mission is to help stop veteran suicide. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.